So, hello guys. We are today the Armistice Day, the 11th of November, and I would like to extend you one more space over the course of the month that just completed when it came to the attack of Avdiivka. And we are going also to speak about a couple of recent developments in Bakhmut and also down south. Uh, I would reserve a small word about Kherson later on the day, mostly because I need to address a couple of fake notices uh, from the Ukrainian side, and that actually the funny thing is the following. The Ukrainians are claiming that they are making progress in Krinky. However, after the supposedly PTS-2 pontoon amphibious vehicle, so far we haven't seen any other vehicle around. It's very possible that they actually air footage with a Humvee, which would be the only vehicle that could fit in the PTS-2. However, recent footage, probably dated from the 8th to the 10th of November, showed them getting a little bit ventilated around Krinky. We have seen about 12 to 15 KIA post attack. Now, what does it mean? It means nothing. As I said, around in the area of Krinky, they only have 600 meters to cross by small boats. Every small boat can carry about 5 to 10 people, depending what kind of semi-rigid inflatable boat you're using. So 15, the KI are bad, but they're not going to stop them because, as I said in the previous spaces, the Kherson area is the only way they can make so-called progress, especially given that the whole Western Kherson is in a very poor tactical situation. I will also speak about the recent strike on the investigation group of the 126th Army. So basically, they killed about 8 members of the military police in Skadovsk, which, in my opinion, shows that the biggest issue right now for Russians in that corner of the Kherson area is to filter out the population. As I said, into our private group, the Team War Criminal, people who did that strike, given that the station was not an official building, knew pretty well. So basically, it was either a former person that was interrogated there, or probably policemen who actually have to cooperate. So former Ukrainian policemen now under Russian jurisdiction in Skadovsk. So there again, as I said, the biggest issue for Russia right now is that the occupation is not as bad as it was for the Americans in Iraq, or the same Americans or the ISAF in Afghanistan. Unfortunately, they do not need much help, given that they have the means to strike very deep. In this case, over 80 kilometers strike, rather precise, and the results were there. As I said, 8 KIA confirmed and 10 wounded. To which a reply was done in Sumy, with about 4K on the Ukrainian side and a couple of wounded. But once again, this kind of back and forth doesn't help very much the front line, but it shows that the Western Kherson is in a tactical situation that is less than desirable. Most of it is due to the fact, as I said, that they have too much backfield around Nikolaev, so they can go to Pravdino with the HIMARS, fire them, and go back, and it's done. But yeah, the situation, of course, as I said, most of the time there's a huge problem with intelligence on the ground. Russians still do not know who is who among the ranks of the people they still employ as policemen, civil servants, and so on. Now let's go back to Avdiivka. Avdiivka, actually, I wanted to talk about the situation because, as I said, they are insisting up north. Within the group, I shared a couple of maps. Those maps, I'm going to also post them on the timeline. The maps come partly from me, but most of them come from a Twitter account called Poulet Volant, Flying Chicken. It's a French account, extremely detailed and precise. He's quick, as I said. He might sometimes see pro-Russian, sometimes pro-Ukrainian. Doesn't matter. The guy just does mapping. Whatever he thinks is not important, but this mapping is more or less correct, more or less accurate. So what does it show? These maps are very interesting. Once again, this is a side note because they also show the topographical reality. If you check these maps that I'm going to post, you're going to see why my idea was to go by south, because by south you are going to have a vis-a-vis height all over the advancement. Basically, you are going to get up to where the position they are right now, about 220 meters of altitude, and you're going to go steady on up to 250, and from there the position down slope is going to be about 4 to 8 meters, so you're going to be around 240 all the time, which means that you're going to get inside the city without being on a basic choke point. So they're not going to see from above. This makes it easier to avoid getting droned, RPG'd, whatever you wanted. On the other side, back north, they fought like fucking hell to get to the position where they are. I already explained this. The ridge that is the railroad that goes towards Stepove and beyond Inoceretine is also about 220 to 240 meters high. But there you have the big issue, as I said, that you need to push from very low ground to high ground, and the high ground isn't that big either. You got a stretch of about 1.2, 1.3 kilometers total over, let's say, 3 to 5 kilometers. This is why the easiest way for me, like if we want to spare forces initially, was to go from south, because your connection until the Tsar's hunting lodge, Tsar's Calcutta, was on the same altitude. So you are not into a lower ground. On the other side, it would also, as I said, avoid what's happening right now, southwest of Avdiivka, where they are more or less cut around Severnye, and they cannot go beyond to the Zenit former military camp for one main reason. You need to go down up to around 190 meters, but the 9th district that is just in front of them is already at 240 in altitude, so 50 meters above, plus the high rises, which are between 20 and 35 meters high, which means that they are roughly at 280 and you're 190. They can literally make the life miserable for everyone. ATGMs, FPVs, mortars, you name it, you're gonna get there. Instead, as we're seeing, it's not what I'm saying. I actually said that either they go on both sides at the same time, either they find a solution. Apparently, the solution is going full north. They've crossed the railroad in at least 4 different positions. One is straight in front of Stepove, so Petrovska is taken or supposed to be taken, and they are within the first houses in Stepove. The biggest situation with Stepove is the following. Footage that was shown by NPG Razvedka was showing something that I personally didn't thought was true, but it shows that Ukrainians have lost the railroad at least 2 weeks from here. Like, we didn't have any proof until now. Remember the attack with the Leopard 2A6 that got hit by whatever it was, T-72 or whatever? Well, they showed the whole, I'd say, timeline, or something that would resemble a timeline, and you can see that the Leopard does not approach the railroad, stays at least 200 meters from him, and is starting to hit all along the railroad. Then suddenly something hits it or something flies over it. It sends some smoke, tries to get back. We know that at that moment, when he tries to go around, he's hit by something, because we saw the Leopard burning. So that problem is solved. What we didn't know, and this is the funny part, when we see they are avoiding a huge area in the middle of the road. And that part is very symptomatic, and it shows to me exactly what's going on. The square, I'm going to post right now the picture. The square that they're avoiding is probably a mined area. In the picture I'm going to show you, it's marked void. It's a V. Basically, because the whole area there is a mined area. They are going through small passages around it and also in the middle, but they're not just cutting it. This, once again, shows that Ukrainians had prepared minefields there, and they're avoiding them. They got hit in the first houses of Stepove. I'm going to also post the geolocations. Don't you worry, guys. It's all there. I did the analysis with the Teamwork Criminal. And the thing is the following. They have lost the railroad, at least the length, for at least 2 to 3 weeks. I'd say 2, but let's say 3. The Ukrainian side has been drip feeding footage from the first 12 days. This is an absolute reality. You cannot deny it anymore. Thanks to this footage that we see. Everything that you've seen with Russian destruction, everything, this is not from the last 3 weeks. Because the positions that are getting attacked in most of these movies are already bypassed by the Russians. They're already gone through. And now we had the proof by Russians being in a small underground bunker previously held by the Ukrainians in Petrovskoye, so way beyond the railroad. So where are we right now? Where we are right now is the following. The Russians, for some reason, are doing a very good job in the north, far more than I would expect. And for some reason that I also explained more or less to you, they are very, how can I say this, reluctant to go beyond what they're doing right now down south. In one sense, in Tsarskoye, I can understand that because, as I said, the biggest situation was to go as soon as possible, as fast as possible, as furiously as possible, to open that area in Tsarskoye and go beyond that and try to get the position around the the huge fortified hill from the back. This never happened. They are not going beyond any more than Opitne and around the Zenit camp, and that as well I understand why. As I said, once you align the front line towards the 9th district, then the 9th district is going to be overwhelmed by all the troops going to it. The other problematic thing is that I posted something that Deep State did. The TWK group also had the primer on that. Deep State is recognizing some things that's very important, that they have lost the length of the railroad anyway, be that controlled by the Russians or in gray zone. And they also have lost the carry out of Pitne, and there is gray zone around the Zenit ex-military camp. Is this proceeding on time? I said I give them 2 months. If this goes like this up north, it's going to be needing at least another month to be completely certain what is going to go on with Avdiivka. So basically, Ukrainians will have to make a choice, move out or die in there. In my opinion, the Russians did what they were supposed to do up north, did also what they were supposed to do down south, so the minimal targets are achieved. What happens now, in my opinion, is just the following. They need to be sure to what they're doing. Why? Because what happened the first 5 days of the assault was a shit show. Despite the fact that they got what they wanted, they spent too much capital, especially assets. I think at least a good 30 to 40% of the assets that are left on the lines are going to be recovered. The risk is that if you want to recover them now, you're going to get FPV'd. So you're going to lose. Recovery means exactly what happened to the Ukrainians in Robotyne. So in my opinion, what would be nice is to push them as long as possible so you can at least recover most of what can be recovered right now. That would save you easily 80 to 90 vehicles from what was lost. And that changes a lot in the current situation because you can, with those 90 more vehicles, do another YOLO push. Once again, we know, everybody knows that's not how you should do it, but there is no other way right now. You cannot make a mass staging. You cannot mass artillery to fire with 200, 300 guns. You cannot do shit that you used to do. And the most important part, the helicopter strike in Lugansk and in Berdyansk forces the Russians to go from Taganrog. So basically, the Ukrainians willingly know what's coming. So it makes it even more complicated for the Russians to hide their intentions if they're coming from Taganrog or Milerovo or whatever you want. The biggest situational problem for Ukrainians right now, and I reposted a Jihadi Julian post, is that they know they're fucked. It's not the first time, and this is what I actually explained. That's why they drip fed all that bullshit footage from the first 10 to 15 days. And then since then on, you only have Baba Yagas and these fucking drive-by shitty situation when they risk vehicles to Russian FPVs only to lose ground furthermore. Where from? I did a little small post Avdiivka thread. The target seems to be a Cheretine, and if it's a Cheretine, then they have all the choices in the world. If the two main clusters I explained, the one at Sokol, the other in Kalinove, then you have a huge front line completely clear for the Russians, and the Ukrainians would need to get the fuck out from Dzerzhinsk and New York, because then they would literally be in another salient down southeast of Konstantinovka. This is, in my opinion, what they're trying to do absolutely right now, because everything is favoring another bomb rush on that northern position, pushing the Ukrainians as back as possible, overloading them towards southern Konstantinovka. And also, and this is the second part of the deal, as I said to you, once you overload northern Avdiivka and go towards Konstantinovka, you put in danger the whole south operation in Bakhmut. Because the whole point of Bakhmut is to sustain the defense of Konstantinovka by blocking at Chasovya and Ivanovske, because once Konstantinovka falls down, it's a domino walk of about 40 kilometers until Slovyansk. And all the efforts they've done in Bilogorivka, last year, this year, Seversk, same thing, is useless. They're going to be caught, or they risk getting caught in a lengthy salient. I'm not going to speak about cauldrons. It's not real right now. So relax, guys. I'm not saying, oh my God, there's no. They risk getting caught in a salient over time. And as I said, this is the biggest situation right now with the Russians and the Ukrainians, because the Ukrainians had the initiative for so long, and this happened to the Russians last year as well. And I repeated the same theme. The Ukrainians right now, with this counteroffensive and the very bad choices they made during the summer, find themselves in the same position that the Russians found themselves when they took the whole of Lugansk last year. They had used so many assets, and they had let other fronts, become idle, because the most important part was to get the LNR freed, which they got, by the way, but that's something else. In this case, the Ukrainians didn't get any of their fucking targets. Any of their objectives were even close to get solved. Bakhmut is a fucking mess, because now the Russians are counterattacking around Klishivka and Andriivka. They are recovering most of it in the Berkivka reservoir, and the few attacks up north are almost subdued right now. What is happening, however, is that the Ukrainians are, I don't know for who is the fucking idiot that is trying to do this again. They're retrying assault in Novoprokopivka. Latest assault was a frank success. They lost about 4 vehicles, including a tank, at 1.7 kilometers. So basically even worse than the previous positions that they fucking demined this summer. In the end of August, they did a fucking trench raid, put together with 2 tanks, and then you remember one almost got hit by a Lancet and the other got hit by an FPV. Anyway, not much of a problem, but this is how the wheel of fortune, how the turntables are going now. My biggest situational scare is that all this is happening while the Ukrainians are trying to exploit the propension for schizophrenia and doomerism on the Russian side. Attacks on Kherson are pretty nice. They're great. They are probably going to do some shitty ceremony like they did actually in Krinky. And I think it was not in Poima, it was in Pishani, when they fucking got into a fucking small hut, stood there like idiots for 5 minutes with a flag, said, yeah, we freed them. 10 minutes later, the house was bombed and they filmed themselves running out of that house and going into a former Russian anti-artillery bunker. So, yeah, that's the funny part we have right now. Then we have the attacks in Chernomorsk that, as I said, in my opinion, are probably going to show a attempt around the Kinburn speed. Most of it is going to be, in my opinion, again against the Russians as pure PR. But my biggest problem right now is that I don't see the end game for the Ukrainians in Kherson. Why? When you see the different points where they're attacked, the only situational awareness problem that they have, and it's a huge one, is how they're going to get reinforced once, even if they get, let's say, half of Oleshki, the city. Why? First of all, UMPKs. Second of all, within 5 kilometers, the electrical warfare system that the Ukrainians are using over Dnieper doesn't work. And the other problem is that doing that, they're going to cut their own FPVs. So all that remains is artillery. We saw a hit over a convoy in Gladkove. I'm not sure that thing is not old and replayed. I'm not sure. It can be also true and new. I need to check it out. But this also shows exactly what we were saying, that Ukrainians are not trying to affect deep depots. They are trying to affect normal side deliveries just to make it harder for the Russians to keep resupplying small areas. But as I said, they haven't solved their own supply lines. There is no pontoons, there are no bridges, there is no transfer possibility on those areas right away. So as for the Black Sea Fleet, it's a game of interdiction right now and fixation. The Russians are forced to stay on Kherson. At the same time, they cannot have all the areas on Kherson. This is a great plan. It's an amazing plan. I'm going to tell you guys, I tip my hat to whoever retard drew this, because that means that themselves they need to get busy in Kherson. So they themselves need to put assets and lose men and lose forces for something they know they're not going to get through with. This is not Zaporozhye. In Zaporozhye, they have a huge advantage that they cannot exploit because, unfortunately, they don't have an air force. But in Zaporozhye, they can go back. If they get bombed in Robotine, they can go fucking back a bit later in Novodanilovka and beyond in Orekov. Here, they need to wait for a small fucking boat, which sooner or later is going to get caught. And sooner or later, you're going to lose people even on the evac. And as I said, the backfield is very important in Orekov because you still have a lot of backfield. But once you cross the Dnieper in the area, you don't have that backfield. So this choice of literally sacrificing people, in my opinion, for something that still evades me, I'm not getting it. I mean, I understand what they're doing, but I don't understand why they're doing it. Is it because they have pontoons ready? This is not true. As I showed in another footage from the Russians themselves, there was a part of pontoon they had detached and brought, in a way or another, forward around the dachas in the Antonov Bridge in order to hide them when they're coming through. This is most probably due to the fact that they get FPV'd a lot, so they are losing a lot of time to go closer to the dachas. They want to stop there by night, have this thermal defense, whatever you want to call it, drop by and then move away. It shortens their way, and then they can also navigate through the bridge. But this situation, in my opinion, once again, makes it extremely complicated to actually take these people seriously. First of all, there is no accumulation possibility as it stands due to the fact that UMPKs are still reigning. As I said, even if the UMPKs do half of the damage they're supposed to do, that's a lot of strikes per fucking day, recognized and geolocated. Ukrainians say sometimes 90 per day. I think that it's a bit less than that, simply because the planes that are used for the moment are a lot less than what is needed to shoot 90 for that area. Now, where it gets a little bit more complicated, and I would like to actually agree with a lot of people on their side, is that the solution that we are supposed to have on the Ukrainian side for UMPKs, which is an air force, is not going to come for at least 3 to 4 months. And it needs to come in a different shape that we thought. So it's not only, how can I explain this? It's not only simply getting these people around Kherson defended by air defense or aircraft, like in this case the F-16s, but there's also staying there around the clock. So let's say that Ukrainians get the first 5. Actually, they're already there. I also pointed out a very curious picture in Spangelm in Germany. Old reshaped F-16s from the US were there. And someone pointed out that there were 5 different engines of 5 different era. And all the planes were training planes. There was even a Holloman Viper, according to the picture. And this is the fun part. This is where we get to what I said. In my opinion, given the type of aircraft that is going to be delivered there in a way or another, we are not seeing a strike package alone. I honestly don't think it's going to be about strikes on the ground or close air support. It's just simply not there. Because as I said, it would require that the Americans send a lot more than both sides, so Brits and French, have sent so far. It would require the Americans to send 300 long-range airborne cruise missiles. These things, once again, I do not think it's possible in the current situation, unless something happens in the upcoming visit between Xi Jinping and Biden. My logic is that this comes at the exact point when both sides, and Russia is not the biggest focal point. The US and China have other interest feuds for the moment. But I think one of the parts when it's going to be decided what is going to be exactly given to Ukraine is going to be decided to what happens now. First of all, we still don't have a confirmation about the North Korean rounds or whatever was delivered. We don't also have a confirmation about how China is helping Russia. I have posted a couple of things, mainly from TT125. Great account, guys, when it comes to EV, when it comes to drones, and when it comes to technical details. And the analysis that he made based on what was found by the Ukrainians after remnants of Shahids or Grants, we call them, is that the Chinese actually do not stop anything. Whatever was discussed, whatever was decided by China when it comes to drones, when it comes to subcomps, there is nothing being stopped. The Russians are putting twice the GPS receivers on the Shahids. And this is what makes those Russian-made Shahids more expensive when it comes to the subsystems they have inside, but a bit cheaper when it comes to construction. As was explained by the Ukrainians, The Iranians took time, crafted a very nice honeycomb structure with different type of fibers. Russians go for glass fiber for the macro body, a bit of carbon fiber for the internal separations, and the subsystems are very different. Iranians put only one GPS gain antenna, Russians put two, and all different sets of subcomponents are, I won't say better because I don't want to insult the Iranians. I would say redundant. Why? Because the Russians need that much more anti-electronic warfare edge that the Iranians for the moment do not need, because most of the time they're attacking, well, the Saudis, Gulf area countries, and even Israel, or the Americans as recently. So on that aspect, the Iranians can do just as good. It's just that it's not important for them. And other details were also there. So the fact that Iranians put this within the body or outside the body, depending on which model we're speaking of, while the Russians do not care, because it's an expedient. They need them. They need to use them as fast as possible. And some design choices might seem primitive on the Russian side, but are extremely comprehensible when you see that they need volume on top of the efficiency. So overall, what we're seeing is, in my opinion, that a lot of the decisions that would make 2024 what I estimate a complete shit show, mostly for Ukraine, are going to happen after Xi meets Biden. I think the message that Putin has given Xi is the following: get the fuck out of Ukraine, or we're just gonna fight until the last Ukrainian. At the same time, when you hear what Zelensky is saying about Ukraine, is that they need to mobilize, they're gonna have a new army, reforms, all this shit. Reality is, if you see the numbers of the money spent for Ukraine from the US, out of the $120 billion that have been spent on Ukraine, only more or less 40%, actually even less than 40%, were spent in Ukraine itself. 69 billion, according to numbers, were spent predominantly in the US, because the US buys supplies, buys extras, buys pole, buys whatever you may name it, and then ships them to Ukraine. This is how they're sure of, quote unquote, no corruption in Ukraine. This also favors absolutely nightmare schemes, as we spoke with a new anti-drone system, which is basically a kit to be adapted on a free fire rocket that is mostly used for helicopters, and makes them laser guided and usable against class 2 and class 3 drones. Basically between 8 to 25 kilogram drones, so DJIs, FPVs, and Baba Yagas. The biggest situation with this logic, however, is that the US is going towards a race to the bottom when it comes to the solution it can give on the cheap. And we already explained that. We now learn that the EU will not be able to fulfill its quota for 2024 for March. We spoke about this since the month of May, when you do the calculus and when you know a little bit the insides of how both the metal part of the whole deal works and the filling deal of how it works. You understand that since the beginning the EU knew it was not going to be able to actually fulfill this, and it's already a fucking success that they were able to deliver at least 30%. Now, the same thing happens with the Americans. They said that within early 2024, they're going to be at 60K rounds per month. We know that as now acquiesced by the procurement chief on the US side, they're going to be at around 36,000K a month, which means that they have saturated their possibility to grow production within the current structures, because they went from 14,000 to 36,000 is almost 3 times the amount, and that's exactly what they did. There are shifts, or there planned to be shifts for every time of the day. But when you see how they're going to do 60K at the end of 2024, that means that only one manufacturing spot is going to be built within 2024, and maybe a third one manufacturing line is going to be available for 2025. Because when you see the growth of that, 36, 60, 80, and then up to 100, that means that the production lines every time are getting built, and the logic is there. First, they're seeing how the war is going on before investing this capability. Because let's say that the war dies down end of 2024 with any kind of solution, pro-Russia, pro-Ukraine, this is not important for the deal. Then the Americans are going to say, yeah, well, we tripled our basic production when it comes to whatever we're procuring. We need to refill about 2.5 up to 3 million 155 rounds. The cassette rounds were not going to be refilled, as was the explanation, because the Americans had already decided against it. So basically, with that kind of replenishment, the Americans can, within 3 to 5 years, refill whatever they spent and keep giving to Ukraine whatever they need for a round 3 when it comes to the war. Same thing for Europe. The investment that's needed for this 1 to 2 million round production, supposedly, it's simply not requested for Europe. The biggest situation is that the purchase orders, the procurement orders for artillery rounds come from countries that are next to Russia. And there is only one big country, and that's Poland. If you, of course, take out Ukraine. Hungary is not buying a fuck ton of artillery rounds. Slovakia right now changed course, at least in words. The new government of Fico is not going to buy more shit. They even fucking cut the latest shipment. There are other logics here that are getting into the point where the countries buying for Ukraine right now do not have a real danger from Russia. Actually, the biggest purchaser of new rounds is Germany. And Germany, in this case, needs Russia, as we already posted, to get back on track industrially wise. What Germany is doing right now is, first of all, developing the wrong industries. Because as you see, and I posted multiple times, Germany is not selling any Leopard except for Norway. And we don't even know if that contract is going to be fulfilled, if Rheinmetall goes all the way and keeps helping Ukraine. Second of all, Germany is losing a lot of potential. Panzerhaubitze 2000 just lost another contract with the Brits, who went for the K9A2. Poles, same thing, they stopped the crab, and they are going to acquire K9A2 as well. So South Korea here, that is supposed also to be a possible source for Ukraine, is also going to have its tabs filled with orders from other countries. So when you see the whole situation and procurement, of course it's completely crazy, and of course it's completely dysfunctional. This is exactly what I was saying in May, is that nothing of what we see Europe doing right now is going towards Europe taking this war, quote unquote, seriously. What the Europeans are preparing for, when you see it, is that Ukraine is going to lose. And at some point, they are going to tell Ukraine, okay, we're going to give you a possible way out by guaranteeing your survival as a state, but you need to sign the dotted line here about, I don't know, Crimea for sure, Donbass for sure. Are they going to also let go the two other oblasts? Given that Putin made them Russian, to me, it makes no sense. And Ukraine needs to forget about those two territories for as long as nothing else happens on the front. And that doesn't mean only supplies. It means offensive systems, defensive systems, other troops, because that's also something that we're going to, and that's what I wanted to speak about. how Ukraine cannot mobilize, why Ukraine has this huge issue. The money it is spending in Ukraine right now are money that come out from Ukrainian budget, supplemented by European and American funding, but most of the so-called funding is still spent in the US. So basically, if you want to mobilize your economy or militarize it on the Ukrainian side, you just don't have the funding. You don't. And this is why you fucking have these huge orders, shield orders in France from nobody's when it comes to rifles, when you are getting swindled out of a deal from Bulgaria for rounds that look like have been made by guys in Afghanistan, and that your biggest procurement is done by your private society.
This space was downloaded via spacesdown.com. Visit to download your spaces today.
Pritula Fund. This is the whole point of why the Ukrainian war is so fucked up. And once again, it's not that the West doesn't want to mobilize for Ukraine, but the West doesn't want to mobilize for Ukraine, create a cranking system when they would be able to match Russia on the production side. But once you create this whole fucking bubble, you set the war up for 10 more years. And in 10 more years, never mind what you think about the losses. If Ukraine loses 50K KA for sure each and every year, that means 500,000 that are gone. Add 2 more to be sure, that's 1.5 million casualties. As we've seen, we got a fuck ton of irrecoverables because they're amputees. You double that for the loss, you are at 1 million people that cannot be used in a productive way properly for the Ukrainian society. And then what happens if the small grind that the Russians are doing Avdiivka keeps going each and every year? That each and every year Ukraine loses like 1,000 square kilometers. After 5 years, it's going to be 5,000. And some positions that were very precarious on the Ukrainian side are going to be simply lost. And when I see how Russia is also playing this game, that's what's going to happen. When you see the total of this year and the total of the whole war, I know that people are going to say, oh no, you're saying bullshit. No. If you know a little bit about accounting, right now Ukraine is still in the red for about 15 to 20,000 square kilometers. That's not Russian territory. It's Ukrainian. So right now Ukraine hasn't done what it's supposed to be doing. And this year, where it was supposed to be the huge reconquista everywhere, they actually went back in the red. And the year is not even ended. And as I said, if things go for the worst for them before the end of the year, you are looking at another 2,000 to 3,000 square kilometers gone. And it's something that everybody understands, but nobody wants to say it. Even Zaluzhny, when he says stalemate, you cannot say stalemate when you're the smaller party, because it's not your terms. If you've less, but the only thing you're doing is grinding the other side to a halt, as we saw with the counter in Zaporozhye, you are going to grind yourself faster, even if you think you're destroying more on the other side, because you have less. And this is the whole situation right now with Ukraine, and this is the situation with Avdiivka that I don't understand. Everybody's saying this to the Ukrainian High Command, saying, guys, in a given term, Avdiivka is lost. So what's going on behind it? I showed that there was already a groundwork there. They had sufficiently reinforced the northwest. So whatever Butuzov claimed was bullshit. But as usual, I said it, the guy is a liar. When he starts losing, he starts telling tall stories. The other problem that we have, and this is the biggest situational awareness failure with Ukraine, is that they knew that at some point their counter was going to fail, and the Russians could then start their own initiatives. And of course, It's not perfect, and of course, it's not actually even good, to be honest. But the results and the impact of this quote-unquote failure are being felt right now. Everybody's saying, yeah, you know, the noose is at 6.5 kilometers. The problem is not the noose once again. Avdiivka can be lost by the Ukrainians, even if there's no stranglement and if there is no complete encirclement. Bakhmut happened the same. The biggest problem with Avdiivka is that when I thought about Soledar in the beginning, I wasn't really expecting they would do the same exact thing. When you see what the Russians are doing, they are pushing towards Keramik and Novokalinove, which is a small Soledar. And they're cutting then the railway. Put both maps and both advancements next to each other, Soledar back in the day and now Avdiivka, and you're going to understand the plan is the exact same. It's a fucking carbon copy. It's stupid in my opinion, but if it works, it's not stupid. We would like to have, this valiant DNR Russian push from the south, smart movements, FPVs left and right. Doesn't happen. What the fuck can I do? You can always propose a smart way and a dumb way, or a way that would require a lot more confidence and coordination against a way that you know how to do it. Someone will always go for what they know. And right here, they appear to be 100% right, despite the losses. And the efforts in Avdiivka are also being felt in Bakhmut. As I said, for now about 3 weeks, there is no advance on the Ukrainian side in Bakhmut. They're gone. To me, right now, it's the exact scenario what I was fearing. Not exactly like this, but the gist of the argument is exactly what's happening. This push in Avdiivka presses the Ukrainians. They dispatch over there another unit. I thought it would have been easier for them to dispatch them from Bakhmut, because at the end, they didn't reach anything in Bakhmut. The 47 going out from the Robotyne area is stupid, because they still are trying something in Kopani, in Verbovoe, in Novoprokopivka. So it was still interesting to keep something, not to lose everything in Zaporozhye. But what they do, they pull them out there and they send them in Avdiivka instead of pulling people from Bakhmut. And Bakhmut, that's the biggest situation, as I said. The Ukrainians are not close to encircling the city. They are not close to achieving anything that they said. Syrskyi has been fucking lying for 5 months. 6 soon. So what the fuck is going on, people? Where are we? What are we doing? What are we doing is that we are slowly going to where we said earlier. Ukraine slowly, especially the military circles, are going to wake up to a situation where they happen to be in the same position that the Russians last year, more or less at the same time. How did the Russians respond to it? We know it. In between, there was also the attack on the Kerch Bridge, the suicide attack or the terrorist attack, which unleashed the winter campaign. I think the winter campaign last year was a bit too early, because the winter was rather mild, and it was also spurred by the fact that you had the Kerch attack. This year, they're waiting. There are some sporadic attacks left and right. Some of the grids are being attacked. But this year, they got the Ukrainians where the Russians were, and the Russians reacted by, as you know, decreeing that the oblasts were Russian, so there was an impetus to defend them, mobilization. I know it happened in September, I know, but the understanding that Russia had been both underestimated and was in a serious pickle in the Kharkov area made them react like this. The Ukrainians right now are at the same spot, that whatever they tried in 2023 was a failure. Overall, I'm not going to say that they didn't push, didn't attack the Black Sea Fleet and so on and so on. but it's mostly strategically a failure. They haven't gone anyway. The only thing they can now say that, oh yeah, we bombed the Black Sea headquarters in Sevastopol and we damaged 3 to 4 ships. Perfect, man. We creamed all of your brigades in Zaporozhye, and right now you not only lost the initiative at the only spot you had it, but soon enough you're going to lose one strategic piece out of nowhere. So, what happens next? Ukrainians would like to mobilize, and on that aspect, the Brits apparently managed to fulfill their whole quota of training about 1.5 months in advance, which probably would allow them to train at least 800 people more. Actually, up to 1,600, but let's say 800 people more. Germans are late. They need to train until the end of the year, 3,200. That was the situation end of September. They should be roughly at 2,000 remaining. So those guys are not on time. They could leave that extra slack to the Brits, so they would be on time on both sides. But if you analyze it properly, that would mean that Brits and Germans would be able to spare about 5,000 new troops until the end of the year. The French probably have another 1,600 to 2,100 in training. So basically, we're seeing 3 to 4 new brigades. We know that there are 6 brigades in reserve that are supposed to be trained, 144th down to 155, something like that. This situation makes it that all those brigades that, in my opinion, were supposed to consolidate whatever gains that Ukrainians had all over the front, now are most probably going to be used as a plug-in, and they're going to drain whatever Ukraine was trying to do by maybe hoarding supplies or trying to, militarize its economy. As we spoke about this, to militarize something, you need 2 things. First of all, take out whatever your economy is doing that is superfluous. In this case, I think it would be a lot of people who would work in the fields that anyway you cannot do because, well, at least in the East, it's not doable anymore. They would have also to find people abroad. And here is, I think, where Ukraine can at least recover 20 to 30,000 fresh bodies for whatever it is that they want to do. Get people that are abroad. As you know, in the Schengen area, you need to show patte blanche, which means to give a certain address. And locally, they could ask friendly states, Germany, Poland, and so on, to pick up these people or make a list. See also who is without a job, because that's also in Germany, as you know, the employment level of the Ukrainian refugees is low. And also a minority are men. Most of them are women and children. So the logic would be, however men are there that are not working, the logic would be to ask the Germans to just repatriate them, because theoretically they're not allowed to be there, even though in the beginning they could follow their families. And for the rest, most important part is the following. In order to have a military industrial complex, you need certainty of security of that complex, supplies, and also energy. There's where it's going to become, I think, in my opinion, very interesting to see what happens, because on the energy side, things might be tricky for Ukraine from now on. We are soon to be at the 15th of November, and there is the crux of the matter. If Ukraine starts having problems with energy and the winter is colder, it would be the perfect storm for them to be hit again. Now, is Avdiivka going the right way? So far, maps show that yes. We heard Arestovich that said that Avdiivka will not be surrounded and the Russian offensive will peter out between 2 and 5 weeks. I honestly don't think that The Russians right now want to surround Avdiivka because it would mean attacking 3 different points that right now are completely out of touch with the current reality. That would be being able to clock out Berdishi, then go down around Lastochkine. No way. Right now, nobody wants to do that on the Russian side. It requires another mechanized push, and with, once again, less than certain effects. What's happening now up north is perfect. If they decide suddenly to attack the coke plant and accept between 200 and 300 killed to get most of that area, it would be the perfect situation for the Russians, and that would give them not only a foothold within the city, but the most important part, an operating base, which would simply really cut the north of Avdiivka. Now, my situational awareness is that I discussed it with Shamuratov, who said that the logic would be for them not to go too far without the southern flank secured. And I completely agree with him. My biggest situation problem here is that maybe the Russians will not have the choice. If they don't move down south and squeeze the Ukrainians hard enough, and that's why the micro district 9 is very important, and also the path through the Tsar's hunting lodge, then they won't get any other choice but to creep down the slag heap, take all the buffer area in between the two water purification plants that are just in front, and then maybe we can speak about a complete debacle on the Ukrainian side. But right now, what's going on is that the Russians are trying to play chicken with the Ukrainians when it comes to Avdiivka itself. And this leads to what we're seeing right now, which is a very slow, systematic loss for the Ukrainian side. But those losses, as I said, and I said that in the first thread, are right now not problematic enough for them to start discussing a road of death. That would happen only if the coke plant is at least 80% cleared. Because once it's 80% cleared, given the very large perimeter of the coke plant, then you can literally forget about the northern supply road completely. So it would be again Semenivka, Lastochkino, and then try to go to District 9. District 9, unfortunately for Ukrainians right now, is extremely vulnerable from Opitne. And once they get the Zenit ex-military camp that is just east of Opitne, then it's game over for District 9 as well, without having people coming inside. Most important part, what we need to see on the Russian side is, for the love of God, they have been smart, they've been dumb, they've been smart and dumb at the same time, and they've had a lot of luck in this operation right now. They've been unlucky at the beginning, but very lucky right now because Ukrainians have accepted their terms, they accepted the Russian terms. And whatever reaction there was with the 47th Brigade, they were late. The 47 never came fast enough to stop the Russians from knocking the Ukrainians out of certain critical positions which they have never been able to recover. By the way, do you remember the supposed northern attack with the group that had hid itself under a undergrowth on the tree and got completely smacked out by the Russian artillery about 800 meters from the supposed front line? Where is that attack going? Where are these people? I'm going to tell you where those people are. Those people actually have featured in a recent video. Actually, I posted to a reply to NAFO, dude, that the fact is that Ukrainians become PhD in Russian literature once they're captured. Those guys are those people. That's in Avdiivka. And part of them got destroyed by the artillery, and the rest got simply ambushed and captured. There are about 12 guys in. So apparently, as I said, Russians have been able to be actual the Schrodinger cat, being stupid, being smart, and at the same time being very lucky that Ukrainians are even more stupid than them and less smart than them. In this case, what I would like to close the small space would be to tell you guys that it doesn't matter how Avdiivka ends, fast, slow, very positive, or barely positive. What matters right now is that Ukraine is not in control anymore when it comes to both the tide of the war and of the general initiative. We are waiting only three things right now to be sure about the situation, and I told you so, where the so-called reserve brigades are going to be affected. I think they're going to be affected up north again, because there is where the biggest threat is going to happen for Ukraine, both politically and militarily. And on the other side, Ukrainians need to keep the illusion that Kherson is something that's going to matter for them. I would like to think that Ukraine, before the end of the year, going to understand that Kherson, whatever they try to do, is not going to work, and they're going to try something even stupider in the Novakakova reservoir that is more or less dry. We need to understand that there are paths there over 15 kilometers long, and if the ground indeed is not hardened and frozen enough during the winter, we're going to have worse images than June 6th, 7th, and 8th in Zaporozhye. And it's going to be a fucking fiesta for the Russians. Now, hopefully the Ukrainians are that stupid, and hopefully they keep doing PR shots instead of understanding where the real risk is. And hopefully the Americans keep this absolute double-faced idea that they're there to help Ukraine win, but at the same time, when you see the actions, the supplies, and overall the posture they have in this war, they keep just trying to antagonize Russia instead of helping Ukraine, because that's what's going on here. If this is really now about bleeding Russia, not about helping Ukraine win, and everybody's saying this, oh yeah, but now we need to get more supplies, not because we want to win, because apparently it's not possible, but at least we don't want to lose, because if you lose, NATO loses. This attitude, this posture, is just pushing the big L further down the road. With the risk is that if Biden loses the elections, the new guy is going to be the fall guy for Ukraine. And this is very interesting, because if Biden loses, it's not going to be another Democrat, it's going to be the Repubs. And if it's the GOP, well, you know what happens. We're going to have a new orange man bad, or whoever is there, DeSantis, that doesn't matter. That's the problem. The GOP would be still inheriting a losing hand that the previous Democratic administration didn't solve. And whenever they try to do something, when you got Trump dealing with Afghanistan, then you had the Democrats coming by and completely fucking up and shitting the bed. And trying to win time because whatever, yada, yada, yada. And suddenly you have the fiasco of 2021. So once again, I would be extremely, if I was an American diplomat, a career one, not an administration one, I would be extremely cautious to whatever is happening in the next 10 months if it keeps going the same way. Never mind what America sends there. Because you would lose a war that was maybe not winnable, but at least stalemateable, and forcing Russia to certain conditions without actually even trying. And you're going to lose it, not because you couldn't win it or stalemate it, but you're going to lose it because you're a fucking dysfunctional clusterfuck of a system. And the end take of this war wouldn't be that Russia is a corrupt hellhole afflicted by cronyism. No, it would mean that the arsenal of democracy, the beacon of liberty, is a shit show, an L machine. And it wouldn't matter how much thousands of Russians have been killed. And it wouldn't matter that the Russians cannot sell in Europe gas and oil. And it wouldn't matter the sanctions. Even the 300 billion supposedly frozen wouldn't matter. As I said, for that part, the Russians have already made more than enough dough to replace what was lost, given the spike in prices and what Europe had to pay for its gas last year. And it's still paying to get the same supply, or at least 10% less supply this year. And that's the funny part. As a strategic move, America is going to lose a lot more than just a chess game with Russia here. And it doesn't matter that they got Finland and Sweden. They added 10 million people. Okay, they added a lot of money, but the problem is that you still only add 10 million people. And the funny part, you now have a longer border. When it was dangerous to Russia, given the fact that it had a war with Ukraine, once it's peacetime, everything changes. Especially for Finland. Because now you're in peacetime. Before you had all these agreements with the Russians, everything was fine. And it was uneasy because Russia, but there was no conflict. Right now, you are part of, as Finland, part of a group that is openly inimical to Russia. So you might start to forget a lot of shit that you used to do. Crossing across to fuel up cheap and all this shit is done. These are just, like small things. But also your strategic vision is changed. Before, you could have a small army and a large reserve. Now, your border and Russia's border are two different blocks. So you cannot have a small army. Now your military expenditure is going to have to double. And of course, you're going to have all kind of nice systems and shit. But you're going to have to pay double for less security now. And this is why the membership of Finland and Sweden, especially Finland, within NATO, was interesting when it was war. But when it's peace, there is no dividend. There is no dividend for Finland. They're just going to spend more of their own money for shit they never needed in the beginning. This is how the tables turn in this war. And this is how fucked up it is for all these guys who were like, yeah, NATO just added 1,300 kilometers. I'm like, yeah, bro, you are only 5 millions to that 1,300. How are you going to fucking cover that distance? And the moment Russia finishes with Ukraine, makes everything worse because Russia is not tied in Ukraine anymore. I'm not saying they're going to attack Finland. I'm going to say that you are in a situation, in a position, when you have to cash the fucking check you wrote down. And it was, as I said, very interesting while Russia was tied in Ukraine. Once it's gone, voila, you are like a fucking dumb fuck. And yeah, maybe you can call the Russians incompetent and a paper tiger army, whatever, doesn't matter. We saw that mass makes a huge fucking difference here. And if you don't have mass, and also if you're not ready to fucking lose that mass, you're not going anywhere. So let's see how it happens. Let's see how much the Finns need to change their strategy in this. And I said they at least need to double their standing army. Just lost money. Don't forget, the same thing's going to happen to Russia as well. Once the war dies down, they're going to have at least a decade to refill and review their whole systems, both those that they lost, but they have to reconstitute a lot of storage. And you know why? They dug deep, tank-wise, IV-wise. It's gonna be UVZ working whole fucking months more per year. And this is also something that is going to sustain Russia for at least 5 to 7 years growth-wise, even though they will not have the European market as they used to have before. The point is, once again, if the freezing does not go into confiscation, which legally is going to be almost impossible, but you never know, because at the end, your money is still at the other man's pocket. And even though he says, I cannot do it because it's illegal, if he wants to do it, he will always find a way. The best way there was this discussion actually with a friend of mine, and he said to me, the best way for Euroclear to fuck Russia over and everything that's within the Russian central bank assets is to make a wrong investment and lose the money. And of course, it's going to be illegal, but they're not going to hide behind, we didn't do it. They're going to say, okay, you can sue us, take us to court. Recovering the money and having a guilty verdict and repayment would take you almost 10 years. But meanwhile, your money is gone. So there are ways, of course, improper ways, of course, illegal ways in the plain text, but you also have to look at it like that. You can have mismanagement, you can have mishandling. And this is also something that I think the Russians have thought properly, and they, in my opinion, have completely crossed whatever is in Europe and in the US long term. And even if, as I said, they can manage to recover some of it, even all of it, it would take time. So it's as good as lost. It's going to be a nice surprise if it's returned, but it's also a lot of money that simply is not going to be interesting anymore, because once you recover it, your reinvestment, especially what's fungible, so a lot of bond bears and whatever, they are also going to be almost impossible to sell from the Russian central bank, because everybody's going to refuse them. So the only possibility would be people who would buy you at 6 or 7 cents on the dime, like China. China is going to buy your bonds at 7%, so you're still going to incur loss there. And it would be smart from the Chinese, I'm not going to lie. So all this stuff needs to be taken into account in the fact that what's happening strategically behind doors is far more important than 2 landing ships being hit by drones or 150, 170 vehicles damaged or destroyed in Avdiivka. The strategic aspect, once you pull yourself out of the maps of the everyday combat, of the every week, every month, and so on, is showing that whatever the Ukrainians thought about this war until probably November, they need to realize that on long term, there is no weapon in the world that's going to save them from a small, big, or immense defeat. They can still snatch a stalemate and a good agreement for them in a kind of Minsk on steroid or Astana on steroids. But the reality is that right now, unless like a Barbarossa's event on Russia, it's not smelling well, and strategically it's smelling even worse, because the Russians, given what happened, are basing everything into the war economy. That's why it looks fast, but also very small. Putin has based everything on the fact that whatever oil is selling, whatever gas is selling, whatever is selling abroad that the state has a share from, is going to go to the industries, steel, armament, electronics. And he has the perfect ally to do that. The Chinese are there. They don't even need to sell their best. The Chinese do not need to sell their best for the Russians. They can sell even the entry level on almost everything and would still work for the kind of war the Russians are fighting. And as I said, the Chinese also know from inside what's being bought by both sides for their electronic warfare, their drones, their long-range calculation and so on. It's very simple. And the biggest problem is that both sides have fucking mega brains. We can mock the Ukrainians, but they have their fair share of wonderful scientists. Russians, we don't need to explain what's going on. And both sides, more or less, for their indigenous developments, are working with the Chinese suppliers to give them a solution, mostly, although Ukrainians are still buying West, and the Russians are still circumventing the sanctions to buy stuff from the West. But both sides, their major contributor to their everything is China right now. And this is why I said, after everything that happened, the biggest factor, the biggest guys who are winning in this war are the Chinese. And they're earning so much experience on everything. And that's why I find it extremely interesting what's going to happen when Xi is going to the US, because my opinion would be pretty simple. Xi is there for the Russian part at least, with a couple of words from Putin. It's like literally, get the fuck out of Ukraine, or we make that country unlivable. And all the rest, what are you going to do? What are the Americans going to do to stop the Chinese from selling dual-use appliances and semiconductors and so on? Nothing. Also, there is another thing that I wanted to tell you guys. We had this discussion with this idiot, this Nafwid, who was mocking Russian steel quality. I said, I don't care. The funny part is that given the excess output the Chinese have when it comes to steel, for the Chinese, this war is a godsend if things get that far to literally dump military-grade steel, even the lowest quality, to the Russians in order for them to build whatever they need. They would even, in my opinion, would be very smart to get blueprints from VPK or RM Diesel or whatever, and start making semi-knockdown kits for the BTR-82AU. Super easy. You make the kits, you fucking ship them, the Russians deal with the rest. Engine, structural integrity, you need to control the quality control of the first batches. The Chinese are literally taking over the Russian car market. So how are you going to see the difference? And it's the same thing with the truck market. The Russians have a huge advantage with the heavy-duty stuff because they can still keep producing them. But the reality is that if tomorrow we have these joint ventures, the Chinese can literally fucking kill the Russian market when it comes to that, and can produce at even half price, which wouldn't be very nice for Kamaz, Ural, and the rest, but would literally change the absolute level of replenishment. And if it's an assembly chain, stuff is going to come from China. You just need to fucking assemble and paint it in the color that you want and just fucking ship it to the front. And it's still going to be cheaper and of equal quality. So it's going to add more to your current capital stock and rolling stock on the Russian side. This is where honestly, the US miscalculated in this war. So basically, that's it, guys. Strategically, I don't see this war going anywhere else but in Russia's favor. Long term, of course, not short term. Short term, it's going to be up and down because unfortunately, the Ukrainians still want to die. And the Americans want to kill them. But unless things change dramatically on the supply front for the Ukrainians, so basically we have a real military industrial complex both in Europe and in America, the things not going to change. And yeah, that's it, guys. Up to you if you want to add something or ask something. It's your turn. Your turn, Snake.
Artillery production as well as the U.S. is like scaled back plans. Like, I mean, they really went below even my modest expectations. And really, like, it's gonna be funny how they just kind of keep them stringing along. But hey, you know, the other alternative is that they're just going to like hand Ukraine like shittier equipment. I mean, what I've been saying for the past few weeks is like they're just gonna, when you see them giving them fucking sidewinders and ground launched Sparrows is a substitute for air defense. I mean, they're just gonna bring them down to the tech level of like a 1980 army and just leave them, and they're just gonna take much heavier losses as a result of that. But that just seems like there's enough like junk that's like half a century old that they can just give to them, and that can keep them going. And Ukraine seems willing to continue to fight, so I guess let them fight.
Well, that's the thing, that we would like for Ukraine not to fight if fighting means just going there for the spite. I know that there are probably Serbians and Balkanics here who know what inat means. In Albania, inat is literally spite, but it's a form of spite that's completely exactly what they said the Russians were, which is meat waves. But my biggest, I mean, we spoke about this, and at least for Europe, I knew that there was no way. I think I made a complete drawdown on everything that was possible at max, and they could barely touch 2.2 million rounds a year by taking everywhere within Turkey, South Korea, and so on. What is surprising, I'm not gonna lie, is that they went for their own stocks in order to be able to deliver. And then they thought that for some reason, and this is my opinion, once again, I'm not saying this is true, they thought that the counter was going to go good enough, so the Ukrainians were going to need less ammo. So the gap that I told you that was supposed to be bridged by cluster ammo would get into a situation where they would need the production. It's literally, you take a mortgage or a credit because you think that your landlord is going to die, or your whatever situation that you have is going to die out. And in fact, it not only doesn't die out, but it becomes worse. And in this case, when it comes to the whole front for the Ukrainian side, I'm not going to say that they are using less artillery or more artillery, but what is very important is that they went into the exact same substitution scheme that the Russians went in Zaporozhye, which was one artillery round, one FPV, two artillery rounds, one FPV, three artillery rounds, two FPVs, and so on, which of course helps them out in the short term, but on the long term, it also means, like we saw that they attacked with 3 or 4 different FPVs a single tour. They are using multiple FPVs for tanks, multiple FPVs for BMPs. Of course, it's better than an artillery barrage. This of course, has nothing in comparison, but it's still a lightweight system. Where I agree with you, but I'm going to give another detail, is that Europeans also, when you see what Rheinmetall was supposed to do, which was put its Dusseldorf manufacturing line online, the manufacturing line is only producing 8,000 rounds of all calibers per month, which means that they are at half their technical capability. And you're like, what the fuck is going on? Where did the German proficiency, the German standard, its industry gone? And then you understand that a lot of it depends on the price you can afford it. And for now, what was set aside by the EU when it comes to the cost completely forgot that there has been an inflation, not only for food and gas, but there has been also an inflation for military equipment and supplies. And I mean, I already posted a mortar round contract. We're at 1.6 thousand euros for a round, which is an absolute nightmare. It's 4 to 5 times what it should be costing for 120 millimeters purely on material. If you add the labor cost, it doubles, but still 700 from 700 to 1.6. It's a steep offset. Then we had the artillery rounds, which is about around 4.3 thousand per round. And these are normal ones. We're not speaking about bonus. We're not speaking about volcano. We're not speaking about smart. These are just your bare standard rounds. I think this is where the capitalist system, the command policy that was installed with the extremely specialized armies within NATO, comes down to a halt. And this is where I think you can also see why the Chinese, for a long while, they didn't start dismantling some capabilities, which might also come handy to the Russians, but let's see that on a further timeline. But that's why they have their mass artillery, some say 36 million in storage, some say between 8 and 20 million. We saw that according to what the Western intelligence says, the Korean could literally drop 500,000 on a diamond. It wouldn't bother them because either they can produce those back or, once again, the Chinese can refill. So we are getting to a certain point where it is going to pay off for some countries to be friends with the people they are friends with. And ironically, it's not paying off for people who thought that their system was the best. To me, it's as simple as that. So it's a very it's a very funny twist in the whole post Cold War mentality, where basically butter was always better than guns, and now we find out that actually history never went away, and guns are always going to be used in order to have the butter you cannot produce yourself. But yeah, that's basically, I completely agree with you. And what is the most interesting is that the Europeans don't even seem phased by the fact they're behind, and don't even seem phased by the fact that the Ukrainians do not have supposedly what they need. So either we are seeing there, if somebody listened to Macron's speech about the peace forum, at some point he touched the situation between Ukraine and Russia and said, right now there is no way the Ukrainians are going to agree to negotiations until yada yada yada. This is not fulfilled. But he said something that was extremely weird to me, especially as a French speaker, that we need just and honest negotiations with Russia. I'm like, wait, what are just and honest negotiations? Russia being the quote-unquote aggressor, what are you going to negotiate with it? And over what? Crimea? Forget about it. Donbass, also forget about it. Zapo, given what Russia is building right now over there, also forget about it. So what is just and honest negotiation with Russia? This, to me, was the first sign, real first sign, that Ukraine might lose enormously. Of course, it could be another Minsk type of arrangement, which is the exact contrary to what it is supposed to be. It's basically a tactical or a strategic pause for Ukraine until another plan is thought and Russia can be lulled down into a position when they can counterattack and make a fait accompli in Zaporozhye or whatever. But to me, it also was a clear signal that the war, first of all, is not going the right way. But the second part of it is that the French are seeing where this war is leading Europe. And as maybe you all know, they are also the ones who have the most independent foreign policy generally. And what they're seeing is that their biggest cash cow as French within the EU system, Germany, is getting ill. And it's not only getting ill because of the war itself, but also because of the friendship effects of this war. The friends that they were supposed to have were supposed to be on the continent, which is basically Russia. Now the friends that they have are in a completely other continent, and they can afford both a sense of safety and security while Germany is getting drained, but also while Europe is paying for something they should have never had to pay. For Europe, both Nord Streams were the perfect solution to the bickering between Russia and Ukraine. That took out a lot of political power play in there. And the French and the Germans, they had no issue with that. Who had an issue is people, of course, who were earning money out of the old pipelines, but also were earning clout out of the feud between Russia and Ukraine. And this is something that, despite everything, is not going away for France, Germany, and the old West Europe. This war is a fucking nightmare. It's taking out, and you, Snake, you know about this, and we spoke about it. It's taking out everything that they could have built to make Europe sustainable as a system down the road. And now there is talk about getting Ukraine in the EU. I mean, what the fuck? Countries like Albania, countries like Montenegro, countries like even fucking Serbia are at the door of an accession. They have peace. They have systems that are not less corrupt or more corrupt than Ukraine, call it as you want, but we are said to just fucking wait there. I'm not, honestly, I said I would like to be in the EU as a personal preference because there are also financial interests in game, and I like the fact that Albania is outside. But how the fuck are you gonna integrate Ukraine while first of all the country is at war, second of all the country is going to have to shed part of its territory, but if you accept it while there's a war on, the EU treaty forces Europe to intervene in this war. To me, it's a nonsense. It's an absolute madness. And I know there is this joke about unelected officials and so on, but the biggest situation is not being elected or not. The biggest situation is the effects of such both announcements and steps taken out. To be honest, if Europe or the EU is forced to defend Ukraine and send troops in, all the better. It would facilitate Russia's calculus into that, and we would, escalate straight up. It's not fun. It's going to be the end of many of us, but at least we wouldn't have this joke of a system where Europe actually pretends that everything's fine, where everything's burning, and everything is wrong when Europe has everything it had wanted for now over 25 years, in this case from Russia. It it looks not only crazy, but it looks completely irrelevant to what Europe should actually be about. And we are going towards the irrelevance of Europe. Russia is also going to lose probably some clout and is going to be more linked to China and to its Asian side. But, there is no win-win here. It's just who's going to lose less. And ironically, in this case, Europe is losing a lot more. But they're going to understand that loss, as I said, for Finland, when the war is going to end. When the war is going to end, and then they're going to try and get back, especially some countries that literally are too close to Russia. It makes no sense for Germany to fucking buy LNG abroad, where Russia is right there, and the infrastructure is already there. Well, then they're going to find out that it's not that easy. And on the other side, of course, Russia would like it to re-enter to the normal parameters, but it's also going to find that almost impossible, given some decisions need to be taken in concert within the EU. So yeah, sorry, it was a bit longish, but Z, up to you, man.
Hello, I just have a short question. So regarding Avdiivka, at which point the Russian forces can dig in and fortify and wait for the Ukrainians to come and make it more positional, attritional battle? If Avdiivka is going to take too much time.
It's rather simple. Can you I have an echo.
Sorry?
If there's an echo, I'm just going to cover your mic because there's an echo.
Okay.
So basically, thank you very much. It's not at all that I don't want to speak at the same time, but for some reason there is an echo. I made a thread about it. The moment they have Stepove and the Ukrainians cannot move forward, they can start entrenching. The moment they have the coke plant, they can start entrenching. And the moment they have Severny, they can start entrenching. At that point, the noose is going to be between 4 and 5 kilometers large, and it would mean that on both sides, given the terrain factor there, everything will need to go around Lastoshkina. And if it goes around Lastoshkina, it's going to have to pass through Tonenke. If it goes through Tonenke, that means that there is only one way, and you can even use UMPKs on the road, as it already happened right now. So there is no much, if you want my opinion, that is missing. But the biggest chunk, given the way they are operating right now, is going to be the coke plant. If the coke plant falls and is taken at 80%, even 100, but 80%, then the noose is within 4 kilometers, and the supply lines within Avdiivka is going to be almost impossible. My choice was to go through the south, take Micro District 9. Micro District 9 makes it impossible to circulate through the city without getting seen and hit, and the coke plant would be irrelevant then, because the whole point is to keep the south of the city. The north of the cities, given how far the Russians have gone through Kherson and Bakhmut, is actually the most exposed, the most vulnerable. But apparently the Russians want absolutely the north first, coke plant. I know why, probably because they want the underground tunnels, because those are going to make the Russians' life more difficult if they attack from the south. And also, as already explained, the terrain after Stepove is downhill, so it's also easier to counter the Ukrainians from there. Once that's done, so basically Severny and Stepove plus the coke plant, it's as good as done. We're gonna see a kind of small Bakhmut when every day 200-300 meters within the city are going to be taken, and within a month the whole city is gone. and the supply lines are even more exposed because, unlike Bakhmut, there is only one main supply line, given the topographic pattern behind Semenivka. As I said, you got two corridors between bodies of water and depressions, which are not usable for transportation by wheel or trucks. So yeah.
Yeah, I just also want to mention that just the other day, I think Putin had some remarks he gave with some civil groups. That was talking about the history of the fraternal nations, and he said a number of things that sort of indicate there's not going to be a kind of dumb like Minsk 3, at least until Ukraine loses quite a bit more. I mean, basically, he made the remark that when Ukraine joined us, there were only Kiev and Zhytomyr, so that's basically pretty much the rest of the country was created by us. So that means all the whole southern coast and other regions that are historically Russian. I mean, this is more or less. This is again, it's kind of interesting that this rhetoric is appearing now and has actually appeared in various stages. I mean, I think before this, the last time he was making these kind of remarks, just saying about a 300-kilometer security zone, security buffer, and you begin to see this sort of the position get harder, which is pretty important, I guess, because I think the Ukrainians more or less missed their window to negotiate.
Yeah, I agree with you on some of the Putin rhetoric is not at all comforting to me, because what I think about the control of Ukraine, but that kind of rhetoric means exactly what it means, that once this is quote unquote done, the 4 oblasts already annexed on top of Crimea are gone, and then they're going to ask for buffers. And if the buffers are the ones I think, they're going to say, now you have HIMARS. So before the buffers were 30 kilometers due to the fact that you had artillery. But now that you have HIMARS, buffers are going to be 60 kilometers and the Dnieper. So if you check the line, you got a completely different aspect, because you're going to have chunks of Dnipropetrovsk gone and Kharkov gone. So de facto, your war aims are going to be for the Ukrainian side. Like you are there to negotiate. You sit in front of a map, and first thing that you heard yourself being told is that you need a 60-kilometer buffer. So the 60-kilometer buffer, if you make a small analysis on Dnipropetrovsk, given where the Zaporizhzhia Oblast limit is that you're going to lose Dnipro. Dnipropetrovsk as a city is gone. You have to demilitarize it. If we check from Svatovo, so Stelmakivka, the border there, 60 kilometers, you are at Volokivyar. Volokivyar is next to Shkalove. And if you go against from the border at Vovchansk, that means that you need to also demilitarize Kharkov. Like, there is what I wanted to tell, but I want to leave it for next time. But there, you touched their very important part. If I am a Russian negotiator, given what type of systems you have given to Ukraine so far, everything that I know about war, everything about that I have ever said about this war, means that Ukraine is, even if they want peace, they're going to have to lose a fuck ton, and it's not a joke. They are going to lose a fuck ton of space behind what they are going to lose as ground to be ceded to Russia, if of course we go that far. Yes, it's going to be, honestly, Lviv is gone, so you lose the airfield there. Kharkiv is gone. The first line of military defense that you could set within that 60 kilometers is gonna be Lubotin in Kharkov. It's gonna be also your defenses in Poltava is going to be Poltava itself. Yeah, it's gonna be Poltava exactly. Semenivka up north. It's gonna be fun. Actually, that's the funny part.
Yeah, but it's not just going to be 60 because you guess what? I mean, they provided the ground launched small diameter bomb and also the ATACMS, which brings them up to 160 or so kilometers.
They also have storm shadows and so on. You cannot have everything. That's the whole point. That's why I said 60 compromise. And the 60 compromise is both logical, but at the same time does so much more damage to Ukraine, because I'm gonna remake a whole map with the 60 line, and it's crazy because you lose Shostka, you lose Chernigov, you lose Okhtirka, you lose Kharkiv, you lose Chuguiv. You have still Izium, that's okay, but given that Izium is on the other side next to Sloviansk, you're also going to lose it. And that's the funny part. Ukraine, if it goes to that, if they agree to this demilitarized 60 kilometer zone, that would mean that they lose the combat. They would lose also Nikolaev. Nikolaev is at more or less what? But just to be certain, because I don't want to say bullshit. Yes, it's 50 kilometers from Kherson. So yeah, it's a done deal. You are going to lose through a peace, a bad peace for Russia in military terms. You are going to lose all the fruits of your so-called stalemate / victory. And the funny part is that the line of defenses are really going to get locked between the E50 and the E5845. So even your logistical network, when it comes by, is going to be a lot more predictable for the Russians. So what happens then is that you risk being forced to take out the Dnipro bridges to stop the Russians if they want to go for another go. You know what I mean? So
yeah, but the thing is, like, again, like I'm looking at the GLMRS, and they're actually like switching over production lines to the ER version. It's 130 kilometers. Like I don't think 60 is going to be the compromise. I think it's going to be over 100 if they ask for a compromise. That's the thing. Like it's when Putin mentioned the security buffer many months ago, he was talking about 300 kilometers as opening bid. So
I once again, I really. To be honest, if the Russians get the 100 kilometers buffer, I mean, you lose. You're gonna lose Poltava, man, because from Grey Voron to Poltava, I think it's 111. Just to be sure, 110. So you're gonna lose. Your first line of defense is gonna be at Poltava, man. I don't think Ukraine is gonna ever accept that. And
which means it's going to take more. I mean, that's the only solution.
Yeah, for sure. But that's why I'm saying that if we go towards like 3 to 5 years now, Ukrainians keep fighting and suddenly they realize that, okay, the Russians are going to keep coming, never mind what. And if they really agree on the 100 kilometer, man, then the whole war would have been pointless for Ukraine. And I know that you know me that I go always for the worst scenario for the Russian side. 100 kilometers, man. God damn it! Kiev is demilitarized for 100 kilometers. It's as simple as that. You need to evacuate Kiev. Yep, you're.
Yeah, that would be TKO. Yeah.
It's you're a city center. You're literally in Brovary. So basically, it's as you said, it would be a way to go back to Kiev without going to Kiev. So I think that would get us both happy. But in my opinion and in my experience with whatever Ukraine has been about the last 2 years, they never agreed to that. And I think the most realistic goal would be 60, because that still does them a lot of damage, a lot of fucking damage. But 100, if they agree on 100, then the situation would be far worse than we ever hoped that it would be.
Yeah, like Russia would press for more. And also, I don't think Ukraine would even accept 60. I mean, that's the thing. Again, like Ukraine will. Again, the political leadership has crafted this war in a way where, like, inside Kiev is mostly unaffected. And that way, and in this way, Zelensky can keep the war going by by feeding people into the east. As long as the losses are not at the point where they completely shatter the country yet, and you can probably keep this going a few more years. But the thing is, I think they're going to lose more than the 4 oblasts before people in like Western Ukraine finally feel threatened and are actually willing to put an end to this politically. Because as it stands, it just seems like a lot of people in Ukraine in the West have enough normalcy where they're not willing to really challenge the status quo. And this is, I think, what Zelensky's counting on when you can't cancel elections.
I agree with you. I'm not even sure about what the hell the Ukrainian leadership right now is about, because when you see some of the statements from Budanov and Danilov, when I say that we made great advancements in Crimea, I'm like, okay, right now I need to stop thinking, and I need to put myself into the same position as these guys, because I don't get it exactly what they mean by we made headways in Crimea. I mean, like, they haven't managed even to stabilize themselves in Krinky. And then you understand that, as you said, the biggest problem with the Ukrainian leadership is to keep whoever is believing their bullshit right now going. And it's mad. It's mad because this was the position where Russia found itself last year between September and November. And suddenly they had to wake up from this fucking nightmare of everything's fine and we don't need much shit. And now we are a year after, and we are seeing the exact same from the Ukrainian side. And there is what you said, but I still cannot apprehend what they want. What is the end game? Like, we can post pictures after pictures of both sides getting schwacked in Kherson area, but there is no advancement, and also nothing has been solved in the resupply, and also nothing has even been solved on the political side. What are you going to do if you don't win? Because it's all funny that they made this fucking... I don't even know who the fuck made this ad about the counteroffensive was psychological warfare. That I wanted also to speak about, but to me, I cannot apprehend the mega brain who thought about this. But
the Germans made copes about how they were like tactically withdrawing and will stage a real counteroffensive on the Eastern Front. I mean, they just. But the thing is, here's the thing: they kept doing this all the way until Berlin, which is why I don't think they're even going to accept the 60 kilometers. I mean, on some of the doomer side, or I guess the more realistic, like Ukrainian side, like they're actually hoping that Kiev will get surrounded and attacked directly, because then they can finally like force conscription because of these all these fat and happy people who are partying or not contributing.
You're right. Actually, on that part, I honestly, we underestimate that aspect of some guys being absolute Volkssturmisch in their fucking head. You're right. I never had given that thought, because it would be mad, but it's Ukraine, so mad is normal.
Yeah, I mean, basically, this was the journalist that I kind of made fun of with the Starship Troopers, the dumb shit where you want to live forever. But yeah, she was saying like, yeah, everything in Kiev is so normal. Nobody's doing mobilization. If we were actually attacked, then we'll actually we'll pull together, and we kind of need that because we might lose this year even.
Yeah. The funny part is that, it's a joke. It's literally a joke. And yeah, I have honestly no no way to apprehend what Ukraine is doing right now. Russia is, I'm not saying Russia is doing this by the book or whatever, but it's Ukraine that's completely in a complete madness of an engagement. And it's funny. I'm not going to lie to you. It's really super funny. It's the funniest, funny thing that I can ever understand. And it would be super logical for the Ukrainian side to actually cope and seethe about whatever's happening. But my biggest situational awareness problem on the Ukrainian side is that, as you said, if they go full Zrada and indeed Avdiivka is lost, well, we have some trouble here. We have some major trouble because in Bakhmut, at least they stood their ground. It was a tactical and strategic mistake. But Avdiivka is not going like Bakhmut. I've never seen how bad it was, how bad the defense is. And the most funny part is that as I started with, I thought the 47th actually had accomplished something with those Bradleys and Leopard lost. But that was the counter to recover the length of the railroad, and they lost anything without gaining anything. It's like it's the first time I've seen this on the Ukrainian side so obviously, and the Russians, of course, as assholes, they kept this 2 weeks after and they showed it now, and I'm like, what the fuck? This is something also I wanted to talk about, is the very bad Russian PR. Russian PR keeps getting absolutely awful. Like, why would you show that shit 2 weeks after and let us literally lingering saying like, what is going on? You can see on the footage they showed that it's been 2 to 3 weeks that the Ukrainians are beyond the rail, and it's proven. They have the evidence, the Russians in this case. They don't show it. We had the same thing with the Terikon, the heap. We were waiting, like they let the Ukrainians on the PR battlefield so badly, like fucking badly, and yet we know by the Ukrainians first of all that they lost all this shit, and then the Russians come back 2-3 weeks after, say, oh, you know what? This is the evidence, and we have it since, because they showed the Leopard burning. I mean, on that part, I think that the Russians really need to fucking get the grip, because it makes everything so much more complicated.
Well, I think on some level though that this is like in the end, like they can. It's just like when piggers squeal, they can squeal all they want. After this phase, it really won't matter what the fuck they do.
Yep.
This space was
That's the
downloaded
thing. Like whatever like information starvation that the Z side's getting, like, I mean, like really in the end it doesn't matter. And we can see that we can more or less have confidence in the direction that this is going, even if we don't have the direct, like, you know, photographic evidence of what's going on.
Yeah.
Like, so it's just like I actually do prefer things a little bit more old school, just in case you leak something that is like OPSEC and could actually get people killed. You have to be a little bit cautious about that.
Yeah, I agree with you. But in this case, exactly, I'm going to post the footage so you can understand why I'm saying that. We already know that the fucking attack failed on the area. What we didn't know is that the attack failed, and on top of that, they had already lost the railroad for like a huge number of time. And initially, I really thought that it was the attack on Stepove that they first showed themselves. And then I see that, in fact, it's something that we already know. Not only we already know, but we were hoping that it was true, that the Russians were at the railroad line when the Leopard 2 was burnt. And the Bradleys were destroyed, or at least damaged and incapacitated. And it's true. It was already true then. But this, I agree with you. It's better that we get started and we discover. It's exactly what I said. It's better bad news that comes before good news than a good news, and then we got Zrada completely. Yeah. Okay, Wally, it's your turn, man. I'm sorry, Snake. Wally asked to
Hetero?
join in. Yes, man.
Tro, I just wanted to ask you one thing. The Ukrainians are not mobilizing the way they should be mobilizing. That uh, because I don't see the urgency in them. That is it because uh, it is politically very dicey for Zelensky? Because I think after the failure of this offensive, counteroffensive, the elections were basically delayed and cancelled primarily because the offensive has failed. Had that offensive been successful, he would not have cancelled the election. And the other thing is, to compound that, he in order to stop that reaction in the society, he has cancelled the mobilization, or mobilization is now probably being carried out very discreetly. It is you get my point, no?
Yeah, I get your point, but I think on that one we discussed last time, it's not that they don't want to mobilize or they cannot mobilize for political reasons. The mobilization, if they want, and Snake said it very simple, the only way for them to fully mobilize is to go back to a danger like in Kiev, like Russians are in Kiev, so we need a mobilization. The problem is, first of all, logistical. You would need, once again, to mobilize hundreds of thousands that actually Ukraine does not have the means to do, on short term, of course. We saw that on the Russian side, that controlled everything, logistical supplies, entries of material, transformation of material, transformation of goods, in order to both sustain the mobilization and so on. They took 6 months to prepare and be fully ready for roughly the month of February. On the Ukrainian side, if that was possible, it would have already been carried out because they have the impetus to both cut Zaporozhye and make gains in the Donbass. It's not the country. For once, the Russians are in the perfect. I also told this the last space. Russians are in position when they, whatever you think of them, they can wait. It's not something that was the same last year. Last year in September, they couldn't wait. They had to make advances because they had to grab as much space possible to make their positions unassailable. And they failed down south. They lost Kherson, they lost positions in Nikolaev, they lost positions in Kryvyi Rog, and so on. But now, it's completely different. In Zaporozhye, they still own over 72% of the oblast. In Lugansk, they basically own the oblast. I think only 1% or 2% are still controlled by Ukraine. And their main issue, their main political problem right now is not Kherson, it's not Zaporozhye, it's not Luhansk, it's really Donbass, the Donetsk oblast. Why? Because they only own a bit more than half of it. And the core interests of where everything started, which is Slaviansk and Kramatorsk, are still in Ukrainian hands. And that's it. For as long as those, and this is, I think, the only political and PR point that Russians are going after is those two sister cities. Konstantinovka is nice. Whatever is in between is nice, but Sloviansk and Kramatorsk is where the Russians point their flag, get it, have a bullshit ceremony by saying we own it now, or the oblast practically is ours, and it's done. And they're not going to stop the war, but for Ukraine, whatever they want to do, it will have to start by Kramatorsk and Sloviansk. It's not down in Zaporozhye where the need is. The symbol, the PR move, the power move will be those two cities, the four actually in the whole axis, but those two cities. Once it's done, you also free up the space to go in Kharkov Oblast, which they also own partially, about 2 to 3% of Kharkov Oblast. So when it comes to that, you are at the best possible options for the Russians to end or start the year 2023 and 2024. Beyond that, if it happens in short term, I do not believe it unless something really bad happens to the Ukrainian military. Then we have a completely different scenario when we restart with the 2024 year, which has nothing to do with 2022 and 2023, when the Russian army suddenly is performing a lot better in more adversary circumstances. And that, I think, is also where the Ukrainians are now thinking and saying, what do we need to oppose to this Russian adversary? And the mobilization is all good and well, but as I said, you're going to mobilize what, 50,000, 100,000 more people? Where are you going to find the guns? You're going to get them from America? Perfect. You have to train these guys for at least 3 to 4 weeks? Perfect. We already made the calculus with Snake and the others. You will have to spend in training about 90 million fucking rounds of ammunition of all type of calibers, plus equip these guys for at least a month. It would be roughly 3% of what the US can spare for its own military. And this is just training and sending them for the first wave of assault. Then you have to sustain these guys for 2, 3, 4 months. So this is my biggest situation, my biggest problem. But to cut it short, basically is the following. Ukraine right now doesn't have the means for what it wants to do. Is it going to have them in about 3 to 5 months or 6 months? That's maybe possible. And this is why you hear all this bullshit about negotiation, whatever. I think, and that there's where Snake, I think, also touched a little bit on last time, Ukrainians would need a tactical pause with some bullshit negotiations, and let's see first of all what happened between the Chinese and the Americans, and with what Erdogan comes after the Gaza situation, because I don't think the Gaza situation is going to last more than 1 more month. So there you go.
So maybe I want to ask you another question. Maybe the demographic situation in Ukraine does not allow for another mobilization. It will probably break their society.
Yeah, but this is, I mean, right now, our main problem when it comes to mobilization is a short-term one. The demographic one is a 3 to 5 years time span problem. Right now, if they want 100,000, they can have them. It's going to be complicated. It's going to be controversial. It's going to be opposed by a lot of people. But as Snake said, you can grab the idiots who are partying in Kiev or in Lviv, and you're still going to end up with enough cattle to the slaughter. Where it's going to be more complicated, as I said, is on top of the personal weapons, you need to give them means to go to the assault, or at least transportation means. That would mean, as I said, if we do a proper calculus, Ukrainians should have at least 2,000 tanks, about 4,000 armored personnel carriers, multiple MRAPs and trucks. Right now, this doesn't exist in Ukraine. It just doesn't. Ukrainians might have, as I said, by their fourth generation and the losses last year or last period, they have about 800 tanks. They can mobilize 400 by 400. And that's why whatever they lost last year, it was not even 3/4 of what they had prepared for whatever counter they wanted to do. Same thing for the Russians. The Russians lost. They had a proposal for 800 per 800. That's why the number of 1,600 that Medvedev said actually was interesting, because this is exactly what the Russians have lost and replaced in a way or another during the year. If you, of course, we go by Oryx. And therefore, that's what I said. For Ukrainians, for some items, the fourth generation should have been good enough for 20 to 40,000 people to replace what those 20 to 40,000 people they lost in the counter. But nobody's coming through. When you see what they're doing at Avdiivka, they're not sending a new formed brigade. They're sending the 47th or part of the 47th that was still available for whatever action they wanted in Zaporozhye. Same thing. They pulled out the people from Novodonetsk and they sent them to Kherson. We have enough cases like this which show not that Ukraine cannot put the meat on the roast, on the skewers. The problem that they have is they cannot deal with the rest of it. Supplies, sustainment, asset, tanks, helicopters, whatever you want to call them.
So one more
There you
thing
go,
I
man.
want to tell was the historical context we must also keep in mind. You see, even in you remember the Vietnam War.
Yep.
The Vietnam War, the South fought well for quite some time, and then Americans lost interest and it started to crumble. Same had happened in Afghanistan. As soon as Americans lose interest, the people they prop up, they they, they lose the will to fight. And I don't know, maybe Ukrainian will fight to the last, but you see cracks appearing in this facade where you see their morale is low. People like Constantine Kissin saying it is time to, even in the most hawkish people in the West are now saying it is time to negotiate. So you know, maybe I am wrong, but that it's starting to crumble, this entire facade. Maybe they will fight for another year or so, but I don't see these guys mm, without American help. Even the funds are now drying up. Europeans now have
Well,
another issue with Europeans and Americans with how to pacify the Middle East. The priorities are now changing. You get my point, no?
yeah, I get absolutely your point, and I agree with you that there are things that were I think the West wasn't expecting 2023, despite every declaration, to end up like this. And I agree with you. My main concern is that um, nobody on both sides. We're not speaking about Ukraine in this case. It's literally just West and Russia wants to end this right away. If there was a genuine interest on the Western side to end this, we would have some statements about, you know what, it's maybe time to negotiate. The only one who touched more or less this was Gerhard Schröder, which has, well, basically nothing to say anymore, and Macron recently. But even Macron is pushing for a longer term, a later term. So they want still to have a war within 2024. And the idea is that let's see how it goes, and let's see where the Russians stop. If it's like that, it's not only cynical, but it's completely immoral. We already knew this because that's why they wanted this war. But it also means that at the end, it's not very interesting for them to have a situation where there is a clear-cut victory or defeat. What they want is another Minsk situation for Ukraine, because they really think that once Putin is gone, maybe the next person is going to be less hawkish or more inclined to, I don't know, have a different approach on Ukraine. This I need also to tell people, and a lot of Russians are going to tell you as well. This is bollocks. The next leader, I'm not saying he's going to be as ruthless as him, but the next leader is going to be a lot more definitive and expedient regarding some things that we are seeing here, mostly because the next leader is not going to be a Slovak as much as Putin was. So that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to remark on this too. Like, you also have to appreciate the internal dynamics of Ukrainian politics, and like Zelensky is as much to blame, if not more to blame, for driving this situation because he needs this war to continue to maintain his power. I mean, he was essentially a very weak leader who was trying to basically throw his opponents in jail for treason charges, which weren't sticking because he was a very weak leader. But that war changed everything, and it is a matter of survival because in 2021 you're talking about like assassination plots against people in his cabinet, and now he's the one who is perhaps the one executing these assassination plots. So for him, like he it's a matter of personal survival, and I don't view Zelensky as a I don't view Zelensky as an idiot. I think he is a kind of crafty political agent, and he actually does act in a rational way based on his own personal interests.
Yeah, yeah.
And for him, like to maintaining power and maintain the war at this level is still doable, and is still in his interest to do so. He's still, by the way, he has actually like legally forbidden negotiations with Russia. So before any Western leader has any great ideas about forcing Ukraine to the table, well, it literally is illegal in Ukraine to talk to Russia. So if there's any movement, he has to first rescind his own laws.
Yeah, no, I understand. You remember what I said last time is that a lot of things with Zelensky is also the fact that if he has to stop the war, even temporarily right now, he would have to tell a lot of truths. By the way, the same is true for the Russian side as well, about the losses, about the damages, about whatever. With the Ukrainian side, is literally that they would need to face the piper. Zelensky would have to say to the population, listen guys, hundreds of thousands of ours are gone. 50 plus thousands of ours have one or multiple limbs gone. We still don't find about 20,000 of our guys. We have 5 to 10,000 POWs. Our first army that we put on the fucking line when this war started is gone. It disappeared. And I also think that the losses that we are currently seeing on the Ukrainian side are going to be much more in line with what was announced by the Ukrainians themselves early in June 2022, when suddenly Oryx would have to add like at least 2,000 more units. Not because all was destroyed and everything, but it was damaged, repairable, and usable in a way or another. And the logic that I'm seeing, I told you, and I agree 100% with you, is that Zelensky here is also playing something that is just, trying to get the Ukrainian positions as far as possible. So when it will have this disclosure with the Ukrainian people, he's gonna say, yeah, okay, but everything was worth it. And this was his big gambit for 2023. And this is why I think the counter still went ahead. And there, I wanted to cut some slack to Zalupichka, because I also think that Zaluzhny knew that the forces were not enough, but he was politically pressured to do something about it. And literally the meme about Kontrnastup Suka was a reality, but it wasn't NATO and France doing that. It was literally the political spectrum in Ukraine that wanted something first, because they had such success and such so-called surprising success both in Kherson and in Kharkov. Now, don't forget, even if Zelensky shows the level of losses, I still think it's going to be a secret polichinelle, in the sense that a lot of people know how many they lost. And it would be, in my sense, just a form of catharsis for a lot of Ukrainians. So I'm not expecting a huge revolution by saying you lied to us, you sustained that we had lost 10,000, 15,000 for all this time, but in fact we had lost almost 10 times that. In my opinion, I'm not expecting this because we've seen that Ukrainians during the war became more docile than inversely. When you see around the month of July 2022, you had a lot of mothers assemblies that were asking where the guys were, why the guys were this, why the guys were that. A lot more information was free on the Ukrainian side. Now you have 3, 4, 5, 7 strikes on the Ukrainian side that you see them on footage because Russians showed you in PK and so on, but these strikes don't kill anybody. And you like the Russians keep hitting more or less the same positions and still nobody dies. And then later on,
So another thing that I want to make
tell me.
is that the Western people leadership, the bridge between reality and what they think in their mind is quite something. Biden basically saying that Afghan army has an air force and that they will fight, and then they went away in 15 minutes, and then Jake Sullivan saying that uh, Middle East hasn't been this peaceful for quite some time. I think we are now in a political stage where empire does not even know what is going wrong. So, probably Ukraine is also probably feeding these lies to the empire, and the emperor is saying, "Oh no, you are fighting very well, and all things are going fine, and they are winning, still winning." You get my point.
Yeah, I get your point. I get you, but I think that the U.S. and especially when you placate at least the situation Ukraine and Palestine, you can also see that they are also caught into a completely different realm of lies that everybody has made. I think a Greek journalist at the Department of State pool said something that was funny that said, yeah, you condemn rightly the occupation of Ukraine by Russia, but do you also condemn the occupation of Cyprus by Turkey? Once again, I have no dog in this fight, Turkey and Greece, quite the contrary, but I'm saying that question from a NATO member journalist to the NATO head, and the reply was, I cannot paint all situations with the same brush. You really understand not only the double standards, and that's the funniest part, because the Cyprus situation is clear cut. There are multiple UN resolutions going through there. But the problem is not even that. The problem is that, as you said, sometimes the empire knows very well what's going, but it is stuck into a position where it cannot say anything else. It cannot blame itself. Go on, Snake.
Yeah, and that's actually something I want to remark about Zelensky, because again, like this is, he cannot back down, and the threat doesn't come from civil unrest. I mean, he handles civil unrest through a different means, which is to basically keep the war compartmentalized, and where they recruit more heavily for certain areas, keep Kiev free from the mobilization gangs, so that people around him, the people who threaten him, are not really are going to be placated. But the thing is, the thing about ending the war, why this disaster for Zelensky, because he actually styled himself as a national security president, and if you actually look at the argument he's using to say put Poroshenko in jail, he basically said, like, well, you bought coal from the Donbass, therefore you fund a terrorist, therefore you're a terrorist. Like if you're basically doing this as your sort of political modus operandi, like, what do you think people are going to think if you're the one then saying, hey, guys, we got to talk to Russia? No, I mean, all the guys you wronged before are going to say, oh, hey, wait a minute. You're the one saying that we take Russian money or do business with Russia, that we're terrorists. Look at you. So basically, essentially, he could very well suffer some very nasty political consequences, including assassination. So in this sense, like, he has to front the patriot no matter what. And this is why he also instituted a law forbidding, negotiations with Russia outright. Because that's been his political brand since 2020. That's been the way. Everybody forgets that Zelensky had a political career after his surprise election win.
Yeah. But the thing with Zelensky is also, and this is my biggest out of mind vision, is that this guy managed with this war to completely atrophy the Ukrainian state. We are into a point when the Ukrainian apparatus is completely accepting to be a personal enterprise. There's nothing else there. It's not like they are having fun or whatever. It has become a personal enterprise when Ermak goes out and says, Zaluzhny says bullshit. And Ermak is nobody. Ermak, the only thing he can do right now is just like play the big bully within the state apparatus for Zelevova. That's it. But every time that Ermak has said something, the exact contrary has been happening. Ermak said that, the war is at 70% done. Well, I hope that it's so, because it's going the other way. You know what I mean? So I completely agree with you. And my view of Zelensky has changed in the sense that at the beginning I said like he doesn't call the shots and so on. And it's true. Most of the shots that are like played in concert with NATO and the others, he probably doesn't deal much with that. On the military aspect, he gets information, but he's not the one to pull the trigger. On the political aspect, so all this GUR, all this specifically targeted, he gets to actually talk about this shit, and he gets to say, okay, we are signing off Darya Dugina, we are killing Tatarsky, we are putting together a suicide attack for the Kerch bridge, we are going to hit the Black Sea Fleet headquarters. And this is the funny thing. And this is the point where I completely agree with you. This person makes this war less readable for people who would like to see something else from it. And I agree with you. Our biggest problem right now is to take care of this threat in the sense that it's not to kill him. Actually, for the Russian side, he's been a great ally. We joke at the Team War Criminal that he's the number one THD supporter. But the point is that what is needed for the Russian side is to clear whoever is against him politically and offer them a bit more incentives. And that is make it very painful for Zelensky. A de-energizing campaign right now would be the perfect way to do it. A swift success in Avdiivka, when I say swift, within 3 months, and the movement towards Ocheretine and then beyond to Berezivka would be great. But overall, I think I'm really more and more agreeing to you when it comes to Zelensky. We want him to keep the power because he makes everything worse for Ukraine. And of course, it also causes damage to Russia as well. It's not the point, but it's worse for Ukraine than have someone who is maybe a bit more logical and sees the writing on the wall within 2 or 3 years and says, okay, we need to stop here, even a tactical one. And therefore, I think that the Russians need, as I said, to make it very clear where they want to go, which is go for the Donbass region instead of trying funny things down south, because that would be both more complicated logistically, but would actually comfort Zelensky in his errors, and then quickly escalated with the foreign partners to a point when Zelensky might be simply DM'd. But in this case here, I'm starting to agree more and more with you that Zelensky is the biggest situation here. And it is both beneficial to the Russian strategy right now, but also a hindrance to actually Russia getting politically what it wants. And that's what you said. He doesn't want to negotiate, but at the same time, he cannot win militarily. So where are we? If, militarily he weakens Ukraine by ordering these fucking crazy special movements and also forcing politically the military to go for objectives that are completely infeasible. But at the same time, as you said, if he doesn't want to fucking make peace, you are going to keep killing Ukrainians until the point when someone will have to drag Zelensky out. But this someone, the fact that Zelensky has managed to make the internal security services a private enterprise is going to be also longer. So yeah, we finally arrived at the same conclusion, although differently. I arrived at the conclusion that you would need to kill a lot more Ukrainians to make this war stop, and you give me the reason for that. Why? Because the person who can make this war stop have no interest in making it stop right now. So yeah, I think it could be a very good ending to my explanation. So yeah, guys, if someone else wants to intervene, it's up to you guys. Okay, we have Vasilek coming by here, my friend. Can you hear me? Yeah, your mic works. Come on.
Okay, wonderful. I just wanted to ask, to make this like the hour ago, if we are to expect a winter strike again this year, so again electricity campaign, what do you think are the implications of that? Because last year they had old electrical substations from the old Soviet bloc countries, I think like the Baltics or whatever, they shipped in replacement for Ukraine's electricity. That's obviously gone or implemented now. So how do you think electrical strike campaign this winter would it be larger in effect than last year?
I touched it with the previous Nick, in the sense that there is a problem when it goes to the output of energy generation. Ukraine has managed to reestablish, when it comes to generation purely, very few of what was damaged. I think it's only 1/3 of what was damaged last year. So about 1.7 gigawatt. And that means that the strikes that you're going to impact on Ukraine right now are going to be, first of all, less impactful in a general term, because as they have returned to massively important electricity, this means that the damage you're going to do if you are basing yourself to what you did last year is going to be automatically 33% of what you did, and that is a sustained damage. Ukrainians themselves said, as I said, they are at under 2 gigawatt. But so even if you take out those 2 gigawatts that they were established, you would need to go well beyond that. And that would mean for the first time ever, you will have to attack the TPPs itself. So not the fuel storages, not the substations, not the exchangers and so on. You would have to take out the TPPs. That means TET6 will have to go, TET5 will have to go. The one in Kharkov wasn't even fully repaired yet. So basically you would have to finish the job, so-called. And then also you will have to attack up north and west. And there it becomes a little bit more complex because you would need a completely different part of saturation. And then the biggest problem is, once again, the interest for the de-energization campaign cannot go properly without taking out the dams, be that the one at the Dnipro GES, so basically in Zaporozhye, or in Kiev. If you take out the one in Kiev, you are looking at a major ecological and human catastrophe. Like, you are going to maybe not damage a lot of Kiev per se, between 15 and 20%, but people there are going to get fucked. And okay, it's going to be like, what, 100, 200, 300 dead, not that much, but the area itself is going to be seriously affected. If you do that down in Zapo city itself, then Zaporozhye itself is going to be a lot more damaged than Kiev. And in both sides, what you are going to do, especially in Zapo, is stop the Ukrainians, but into trying to use the Kakova reservoir as a dry ground transfer. All these steps haven't been taken, I think, because, and I explained that since the first time I did this, that was in April, 1st of April 2021. The problem with the Dnipro system in Ukraine is that because you have these cascading reservoirs, the lower you're going to hit, the more tactical your damage is going to be. If you hit in Kiev, it's going to go downstream. So a lot of these dams would need to flush down water in order not to damage the structural integrity of their hydraulic power plants. This is, in my opinion, what the Russians should do, and it's going to be extremely devastating for the civilians. Now, is this a silver bullet when it comes to energy in Ukraine? I don't think so. What this is going to be is going to be a little more than a silver bullet for the energy sector. That this would force the Ukrainians to completely check out how they're going to protect the rest, because the moment you attack the dam in Kiev or in Zaporozhye, it doesn't matter, and it works. So basically, you blow it up. There, we're going to have to protect every single crossing over the Dnieper, but also every single dam. And this is what I think, once you signal you're going to do it, and not joking like early last year, when in April and May there were 2 fucking strikes on the Zaporozhye bridge, and then it stopped. When you start this process, you send the Ukrainians in a complete frenzy, because if it works, first dam drops, your electricity is being impacted, not that much of a problem on short term. What is going to be a problem in short term is that in fucking winter, so a lot of people would need to be relocated, and your heating patterns are going to have to change. Your military will need to help these guys, because we're not speaking about 200, 300, 400 people. We're speaking about 20, 50, 60, 100,000 people within an area around Kiev or Zaporozhye, which would mean diverting a lot of military forces to deal with it. On top of that, they will have to have a plan to protect these works of art. How are you gonna do that? First of all, we will need a lot more air defenses, but you're always stretched thin. So if there is a option on how to impact the battlefield, especially when it comes to the air defense and so on in Ukraine, in my opinion, is to fire a warning shot either in Zapo, either in Kiev, against the dams. Even if it doesn't work properly, that would just put some serious arguments on the table by saying, motherfuckers, we're going for it. And this would be, in my opinion, right now, a lot better than sending 2,000-3,000 shaheeds blowing up substations, which would have a lasting impact for the whole winter, for sure. I'm not denying it. But at the end, they proved, just like the Russians, that they don't give a fuck. If they want to fight, they'll fucking freeze and fight at the same time. As there comes the fact that both sides in this fight are not different, despite everything that's being said by people outside of it. They're not different. They're just motherfucking Slavs, motherfucking Russians shooting against each other, and they will not give up. And this is where it gets all difficult for everyone, because suddenly we're not speaking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. We are speaking about two sides of the same coin at war, but one side refuses to do what the second side has no trouble doing and would do if it had the capability to. So on that one, the reluctancy needs still to be explained. But in my opinion, whatever they have in store for this winter could be easily expedited, at least qua effects, by doing something that should have done a lot earlier. Let's say it like this. So you guys. Anyone else? Okay, then thank you very much for being here. I know that I caught most of you by surprise. I had promised that I would do a space during the weekend. I hope that it would be a lot better qua Avdiivka, because I had a hunch. It's already not bad at all, quite the contrary. Let's see what next week brings to us, and I hope for something down south. Have a nice day, guys. Have a nice weekend. See you next time. Bye-bye.